success we've had in Korea. I'm very happy to see that.
당일간 15,000명 이상의 고객분들이
아마존 클라우드와
AWS 이제 클라우드를 바탕으로
안녕하십니까. 올해로 5번째를 맞는 AWS 서밋에 참가해 주신 여러분들 진심으로 감사하고 환영합니다. 저희가 2015년도에 서밋을 처음 시작한 이후로 올해 국내에서 진행하는 가장 큰 IT 행사 중에 하나로 자리매김한 것을 보면 시장에서 클라우드를 기반으로 한 IT의 변화, 그리고 그 기반하에 비즈니스 혁신을 이뤄가시고자 하는 고객분들이 AWS에 대해서 얼마나 많은 관심을 보여주신지를 느낄 수 있는 것 같습니다. 이러한 관심을 볼 수 있는 부분 중에 하나가 올해 진행하는 서밋에 총 22,000명 이상의 고객분들이 등록을 하셨고, 오늘 내일 양일간 15,000명 이상의 고객분들이 저희와 함께 해주실 것으로 예상됩니다. 저희가 서밋을 준비하면서 저희 내부적으로 중요하게 생각하는 부분, 그리고 매년 고객분들께 말씀드리는 부분은 서밋은 단순하게 저희가 영업과 마케팅을 위해서 기획하는 행사가 아니고 여러분들께서 실제적으로 많은 기술 요소를 습득하시고 여러분들의 경험을 공유해 줄 수 있는 교류와 교육의 장소로 만들고자 하는 것이 이 행사의 취지입니다. 이런 취지에 맞게 올해도 더 많은 120가지 이상의 세션들을 준비했고, 그 세션들 가운데서는 60개 이상의 파트너분들의 세션, 그리고 실제 AWS를 기반으로 시스템을 개발, 운영하고 계신 고객분들의 경험과 노하우를 쉐어할 수 있는 40가지 이상의 세션들이 준비되어 있습니다. 이번 서밋에서는 첫째 날은 조금 더 산업별로 엔터프라이즈, 금융, 제조, 유통, 그리고 게임과 같은 각 영역별로 특화된 어플리케이션 도입의 유스 케이스들, 그 다음에 새로운 기술 요소들에 대한 검토된 사항들을 볼 수 있는 자리를 마련했습니다. 그리고 두 번째 날에는 조금 더 기술적인 부분에 집중을 해서 AWS 아키텍트, 컴퓨팅, 스토리지, 데이터 분석, AI, 머신러닝, 이러한 다양한 기술 요소별로 다양한 레벨에 맞게끔 여러분들이 관심 있으신 분야의 지식을 습득하실 수 있는 세션들을 준비했습니다. 저희가 이번 서밋을 준비하면서 새롭게 또 준비한 부분은 저희가 많은 고객분들과 말씀을 나누는 과정에서 아마존이 어떻게 고객을 중심으로 한 혁신을 이어가고 있습니까? 그걸 어떻게 비즈니스 성장으로 이어가고 있습니까? 라는 질문을 많이 받습니다. 어떠한 부분이 아마존의 핵심의 근거가 되는지, 핵심 역량이 되는지 라는 질문을 받을 때 이런 부분들을 고객분들께 시어하는 거가 얼마나 큰 도움이 되실까, 필요한 부분이다라는 생각을 하게 됐고, 이것을 쉐어하기 위해서 저희가 내일 오후부터 아마존 이노베이션 데이라는 부분을 새롭게 기획하게 됐습니다. 이 이노베이션 데이에서는 AWS를 제외한 나머지 부분에서 아마존 글로벌 셀링, 아마존 리테일, 알렉사, 트위치 같은 부분에 근무하시고 계시는 임직원분들께서 어떤 비즈니스와 혁신을 이뤄가고 계신지를 실제 쉐어해 주시는 세션들이 진행될 예정입니다. 그리고 여러분들이 조금 더 쉽게 교류를 하실 수 있도록 마련해 드리는 작년부터 시작된 엑스포를 올해도 저희가 좀 더 확대해서 준비를 했습니다. 올해는 2배 이상의 규모로 확대해서 총 70개 이상의 파트너분들이 저희와 함께 엑스포를 준비하고 계시고, 엑스포 공간에서는 파트너분들이 진행하시는 30개 이상의 미니 세션들, 그리고 저희 AWS 전문가분들과 실제 말씀을 나누고 여러 가지 데모를 보실 수 있는 공간들도 준비가 되어 있습니다. 또 한 가지 저희가 올해 새롭게 준비한 부분은 실제로 이렇게 많이 말씀이 되고 있는 AI나 IoT, 이러한 기술 요소들이 어떻게 실생활에 조금 더 가깝게 적용될 수 있을까, 이런 분들 좀 느껴보실 수 있게 아마존의 알렉사를 기반으로 한 스마트홈의 전시관을 만들었습니다. 이 전시관은 여러분들이 현장에서 사전 등록을 통해서 둘러보실 수 있을 것으로 예상되고요. 또 한 가지 다양한 기술 요소 부분들 중에 블록체인을 기반으로 해서 운영되고 있는 블록체인 펍, 그리고 다른 기술을 근간으로 하는 다양한 조금 더 재밌고 쉽게 체험하실 수 있는 공간들을 엑스포에서 마련을 했습니다. 저희가 이런 규모의 서밋과 엑스포를 준비하는 과정에 있어서 저희와 함께하고 계시는 파트너들의 중요성을 조금 더 많이 느끼게 되는 것 같습니다. 본 서밋을 준비하는 데 있어 함께해 주신 여러 글로벌 스폰서분들, 그리고 국내 스폰서분들께 다시 한번 진심으로 감사하다는 말씀을 이 자리를 빌어서 드립니다. 키노트를 진행하기에 앞서 저희 AWS 비즈니스에 대해서 간략하게 말씀을 드려보도록 하겠습니다. 지난해 4분기에 총 74억 달러 이상의 매출을 기반으로 전년 동기 대비 45%의 성장을 달성을 했습니다. 이 부분은 연으로 보게 되면 약 300억 달러 정도의 규모로 AWS가 성장한 것으로 보실 수가 있고, 이러한 성장이 이루어질 수 있는 가장 핵심적인 부분은 지난 13년 동안 글로벌하게 AWS와 함께 해주고 계신 수백만의 고객분들의 베이스가 있었기 때문에 가능했다고 생각이 됩니다. 이런 고객분들이 계시다는 말씀은 고객분들의 피드백으로 저희가 이루어지고 있는 제품의 개발, 저희의 서비스들의 95% 이상이 고객분들의 피드백에서부터 개발이 시작이 됩니다. 이런 지속적인 혁신, 지난 한 해 동안 출시된 1900개 이상의 새로운 서비스와 피처들, 그리고 이런 혁신을 통한 기술적 역량을 확보해 가는 부분, 그리고 이런 대규모 고객분들을 글로벌하게 안정적으로 지원하기 위한 서비스 인프라, 그 기간 동안 저에게 생긴 경험의 노하우들, 그리고 이런 대규모 사업을 운영하면서 생기게 되는 경제적 효과, 비용 절감 효과, 이거를 다시 고객분들에게 전달드리는 저의 노력, 이 부분을 저희와 함께하고 계시는 저희 파트너 에코시스템, 이러한 여러 가지 부분들이 저희 비즈니스가 지속적으로 성장할 수 있는 주요한 원동력이 되고 있다고 생각이 됩니다. 또 한 가지 중요한 부분은 실제로 클라우드를 도입하면서 새로운 아이디어를 실현해 갈 때 각 고객분들별로, 각 어플리케이션 영역별로 다양한 리퀘어먼트가 있다고 생각이 됩니다. 그런 부분들을 그 목적에 맞게끔 정확하게 최적화된 솔루션을 전달 드리는 것 또한 매우 중요한 부분이라고 생각되고, 이러한 부분을 위해서 총 165가지 이상의 서비스를 기반으로 가장 폭넓고 깊이 있는 플랫폼을 제공해 드리는 것 역시 저희가 기술적으로 시장을 리딩하고 있는 하나의 중요한 부분이 되고 있지 않나라는 생각이 듭니다. 이러한 시장에서의 기술적인 리더십, 그리고 저희 여러 가지 원동력이 되는 부분을 바탕으로 실제 국내에서도 수만 개 이상의 고객사를 확보하고 있습니다. 다양한 고객의 영역, 그리고 산업별로 저희가 생각할 수 있는 그 상위 기업군들이 클라우드를 도입하면서 새로운 혁신의 기회를 만들어가고 계시고요. 많은 노력과 시도가 필요하신 스타트업 부분들, 그리고 글로벌하게 게임을 개발, 배포하고 계시는 게임사분들, 그리고 엔터프라이즈 부분에 있어서도 금융, 유통, 제조, 여러 영역에서 다양한 시도들이 이루어지고 있습니다. 많은 미디어를 통해서 보셨겠지만 금융 규제에 있어서도 점차적인 개선이 이루어지고 있고, 특히 올해 같은 경우에는 금융 부분에 있어서도 클라우드의 도입은 조금 더 확산될 거라고 예상이 됩니다. 또한 전통적으로 제조 부분에 있어서도 기존 레가시 시스템을 클라우드로 변환하는 것뿐만 아니라 새로운 클라우드 기반의 환경을 만들어내고, 기존에 운영하시던 온프렘 데이터 센터 기반을 모두 클라우드로 전이를 가져가시는 기업의 사례들이 확장되는 것을 보면서 클라우드 시장이 여전히 초입 단계에 있다라는 생각을 갖게 됩니다. 이러한 국내 고객분들을 위해서 실제로 AWS 코리아는 현재 국내에 100개 이상의 서비스를 출시되어 있는 상태이고, 이러한 서비스들을 조금 더 고객분들께 가깝게, 그리고 각 부분별로 좀 더 전문화된 서비스를 제공해 드리기 위해서 매년 굉장히 빠르게 저희 파트너분들을 확보하고 같이 성장을 해가고 있습니다. 현재 국내 수백 개 이상의 파트너분들이 저희와 함께 하고 계시고요. 그리고 클라우드 도입에 있어서 굉장히 중요한 부분이라고 생각되는 부분이 이러한 기술 요소들을 얼마나 쉽고 빠르게 습득할 수 있을까라는 부분인 것 같습니다. 이런 교육에 대한 필요성을 인식하고 저희가 지난 몇 년간 AWS 서밋이나 Awesome Day 그리고 여러 가지 공식적인 트레이닝 프로그램들을 통해서 수만 명의 저희 고객사분들께서 교육을 받아오고 계십니다. 그리고 또 한 가지 주목할 만한 부분은 실제로 이런 개발을 진행하고 계시고 현장에서 기술적인 리더십을 발휘해주고 계신 개발자분들의 커뮤니티를 저희가 조금 더 지원을 잘하는 부분도 많은 신경을 써오고 있습니다. 저희가 2012년도에 처음 국내에서 시작이 될 때 수백 명의 커뮤니티 멤버로 시작됐던 부분이 실제 현재 보면 2만 명 이상의 매우 큰 규모의 커뮤니티로 발전이 됐습니다. 이런 커뮤니티의 발전과 저희 고객분들의 성장 그리고 저희 파트너분들의 성장을 보면 이 클라우드 시장에 있어서의 혁신이란 부분이 얼마나 보편화되고 중요한 부분으로 자리매김하고 있는지를 느낄 수 있는 것 같습니다. 그럼 이런 고객분들의 클라우드 전이를 도와드리기 위해서 저희 국내에서는 저희 서비스에 대한 이해 그리고 이걸 아키텍팅을 도와드리기 위한 솔루션 아키텍트 팀 그리고 시스템이 구현된 이후에 운영 효율화를 지원해드리는 저희 서포트 팀 그리고 여러분들이 시스템을 기획하시는 단계, 실행하시는 단계에서 각 프로젝트별로 실제 여러분과 함께 하시는 프로페셔널 서비스 팀 그리고 앞서서 말씀드린 교육 그리고 저희 수백의 파트너사분들과 함께 여러분들이 생각하는 아이디어를 실현하실 수 있게 지원을 하고자 노력하고 있습니다. 많은 고객분들과 말씀을 나누면서 시장에서 조금 더 빠른 그리고 조금 더 높은 성장을 오랜 기간 동안 지속할 수 있게 하는 부분 이 부분이 얼마나 중요한지를 항상 느끼는 것 같습니다. 근데 이러한 과제를 수행하기 위해서 각 사별로 가지고 계신 각 경영 환경에 따른 그리고 각 사별로 경영 역량에 맞는 경쟁력에 맞는 전략들을 많이 고민하고 계신 것으로 알고 있습니다. 그렇다면 이러한 많이 변화하는 환경에 있어서 항상 변하지 않는 한 가지의 부분은 얼마나 고객에 대한 이해를 계속적으로 가져가고 있는지 그리고 새로운 고객의 경험을 어떻게 만들 수 있는지 그리고 그것을 위한 제품과 서비스, 기업 내 프로세스와 새로운 비즈니스 모델을 어떻게 만들어갈 수 있는지가 그 무엇보다 중요해지고 있다고 생각합니다. 이러한 새로운 아이디어를 혁신의 아이디어를 실행하기 위해서 더 많은 실험을 하고 그 실험의 비용을 줄이고 그리고 검증된 아이디어를 좀 더 빠르게 국내에 확산해 갈 수 있는 플랫폼을 갖춰가는 것은 그 무엇보다 앞으로의 비즈니스 성장에 있어서 중요한 요소가 될 것이라고 생각합니다. 많이들 말씀이 되는 디지털 이노베이션이라는 측면 그리고 디지털 이노베이션을 이루기 위해서 클라우드라는 플랫폼이 가지고 있는 가치와 중요성 이런 부분은 앞으로 조금 더 증가될 것이라고 생각하고 이러한 부분을 실제 각 현장에서 리딩하고 계시는 참석해 주신 여러분들께서 저희가 준비한 이틀 동안의 서밋 기간 동안 관심 있는 영역의 지식과 경험들을 많이 쌓아가실 수 있는 유익한 시간이 되시기를 바라겠습니다. 제 인사말을 마치면서 저희 기조연설을 진행해 주실 연사자를 소개시켜 드리도록 하겠습니다. 글로벌하게 가장 혁신적인 서비스를 하는 기업 중에 하나로 손꼽히는 넷플릭스에서 전체 사업의 환경을 클라우드로 변환하고 마이크로 서비스 기반으로 전체 시스템을 변화하는 것을 주도해 오셨고 실제로 AWS에서 현재 클라우드 아키텍처 전략을 담당하고 계시는 아드리안 카크로프트를 소개해드리면서 저의 인사말을 마치도록 하겠습니다. 아무쪼록 즐겁고 유익한 서밋 기간이 되시기를 바라겠습니다. 감사합니다.
Hi everybody. Well, it's great to be back in Seoul. I was here 2 years ago, and I think the event is now more than twice as big. That shows just how much you've worked and how much success we've had in Korea. I'm very happy to see that. Very happy to be here. So, there are a number of you who have a lot of experience. You've been using AWS for many years, but there must be many of you who are new to AWS. And this is an educational event. We want you to talk to each other, talk to the partners, talk to AWS, tell us things that we need to know. And use these 2 days to really learn how to improve your business, how to speed up the things that you need to do. I'm going to go through now and tell you about some of the products we have and some of the ways you can use them to solve problems. And I'll be bringing on some customers later to tell you how they've solved problems with us. So, what are we doing here? AWS is how many of the world's leading companies build their products, and this is how we build for them. We have the broadest and deepest platform for building on the cloud. We have the largest number of services, and within each service we have the most features, the most experience, the best stability and scalability, and we've been working for many years to build the best products we possibly can for you. So I'm going to talk through a few of these in a little bit. But we also deploy globally. We now have 20 regions around the world up and running, and we've announced 5 that we're working on. Recently, we announced Indonesia and Jakarta, a new region, just a few days ago. And of course, the Korean region in Seoul was opened in January 2016 and has been a very successful region for us. The way our regions work is that they are extremely independent. This is really important for availability and for the way that you build systems which can be deployed around the world and be in the right jurisdiction and work with the local government rules and things that you need to deal with. But within each region, we also have multiple availability zones. Each zone is in a separate, they're separated by 10 to 100 kilometers. They are in separate flood zones. They will not be taken out by the same tornado or the same natural disaster or earthquake. And they're connected on different power and different internet connections. It's extremely independent. So within each zone, we also have extremely strong availability. But if we look at some of the products we've got, let's start off by looking at databases. We have 14 database services. That's double the amount of any other cloud provider. We also have a database migration service, which can move things from your old databases to the new ones and keep them in sync while you're making the transition. We've used this service to migrate over 120,000 databases now. It's very popular, and we're always improving it. It will translate your queries, it will translate your schemas, and it will move the data for you. This is something that customers were building over and over again. And when I first started using cloud a decade ago, this was the first thing that we had to build when I was at Netflix, was something that solved for this problem. So this is a really powerful service that is going to help people move from their old databases on-premise to a new database in the cloud. And if we look at storage, of course, many companies have storage, many providers have storage, but we have many different options for storage. We have lots of options within that, many more storage classes, and many more different kinds of file systems and performance modes. And then 12 different ways to get your data into the cloud. So, lots of options. Then if we look at security, we have more than 200 security and compliance and governance services and key features. We offer encryption across 116 different services. That's 3 times more than any other cloud provider. And you can manage your own keys using KMS, the key management service, with 52 different AWS services that support that. That's 4 times more than any other cloud provider. So it's not just that we have these products and we have the features, but the integration and the depth of what we've been working on over the last few years has really set out a difference. which you can use to solve your problems more completely and more quickly. And in Korea, AWS became the first global service provider operating in Korea to achieve K-ISMS in 2017. You can see the quote here from Shinhan Finance Group. So let's talk about how we get there. Most of you, I think, are new to AWS since we're growing so fast here. So how do we migrate workloads into AWS? How can we help customers move even faster into the cloud? So I'll talk about this for a while. Data transfer and storage is where we start. We have all these tools to help you, 12 different ways to get data into AWS, nearly double of what you'll find elsewhere. The one I want to pick on particularly is Data Sync. This automates transferring and synchronizing data over the network into S3 and EFS. It goes 10 times faster than open source tools like rsync and Robocopy that you might otherwise use. Makes it much more efficient to get data in, much quicker. The migration also takes place with many partners. And if we look at some examples here, for example, in Korea, Burger King Korea embarked on its omni-channel digitalization project using SAP S/4HANA. It migrated to AWS because we were the only cloud service provider with the certification and experience they needed with SAP. By running their application on EC2, RDS, Elasticache, and SAP HANA on AWS, they reduced their IT cost by 20% compared to their on-premises infrastructure. So we have many examples like this. That's a good local one. But this is something you may not realize. AWS hosts nearly 2 times as many Windows Server instances in the cloud as Microsoft does. We're so much larger than Microsoft that we just have more Windows than they do. And the number of customers using EC2 to run Windows has grown more than 400% in the last 3 years. Of course, part of the job is to get you to go faster, so we have all of these resources for helping you do this. We have a migration acceleration program which gives you the support and the incentives and the capability of getting through the migration process. We have the cloud adoption framework which gives you best practices for how to do this, professional services who have great experience to help you, and a marketplace of tools which you can go and find the best options and all the options from companies around the world that will give you products you can use to build out your architecture. Of course, when we're doing a migration, we're in a hybrid mode. We have some of our infrastructure on premises, in our data center, and some in the cloud. So how do we work with this? We obviously need to connect them. Direct connect, extremely reliable, duplicated connections which you can use to connect in high speed between your data center and the cloud. We can run VMware Cloud on AWS, where you take your existing VMware capability and grow it into the cloud without changing any of your licenses or capabilities. It's just a seamless extension. We have Snowball Edge, which gives you a rugged way to deploy instances in a small package, which is extremely optimized, but which gives you the ability to work independently if the connectivity isn't always there. And finally, we announced a new capability recently called Outposts. This is in preview, but what it will let you do is take your existing applications and your existing ways of using AWS, but instead of deploying to EC2 instances that are in an AWS cloud, those instances can be placed on premises, wherever they need to be. The bottom of a cell tower, in a factory, anywhere which has good network connectivity, The control plane and the management stays on AWS. The applications deploy into the Outpost. It's a very powerful new capability. We're working to get that out to you right now. We've also had a huge momentum for VMware Cloud on AWS. It's been very successful. We have many customers that have been using it. More nearer to home, we have very proud to have a new customer announcement from a few months ago with Korean Air, that they are moving their entire IT infrastructure in the next 3 years, moving websites, cargo management, flight control systems, and enterprise resource planning, everything to AWS. It's going to bring new services to market faster so that they can increase customer satisfaction. This is a really interesting story, moving a complete airline, one of the largest airlines, one of the most successful airlines in the world, to AWS. We have it's a situation that I'm personally very interested in. I've had some discussions with Kenny Chang already, and I hope to have more as they go through this process. I think there's a lot we can learn from it, and we are also talking, there are other airlines around the world which are also moving to AWS. And this, obviously, an airline is an extremely critical resource. Everything has to work. This is a really powerful capability that we're developing for everybody to use to run safety-critical applications on the cloud. So let's talk about microservices. Let's talk about the architectures that you use when you're building things in the cloud. This is something I've been working on for several years, and many people started out with a monolithic application that does everything. A decade or so ago, this was probably the best practice. But what we're seeing now is people move to microservices. Each microservice does one thing. It can be updated independently. It gives you the ability to move much faster and to move much more safely and to make many small changes. And this is the biggest thing that has happened in IT recently. This is maybe an unusual thought, but normally you think that if I combine everything together, it's more efficient to do things in a bundle. It turns out this isn't true for software. It gets harder to deploy a large bundle of software than deploying many small pieces. So we have to reverse this change and break everything into small pieces and make those pieces independent and deploy them very rapidly. This also changes the way we deliver software. With a monolith, we do our build, we have our developers, and we deliver that monolith through a build, test, release, monitor pipeline. With microservices, the developers are working in small groups, and we create multiple delivery pipelines. They can all deploy independently at different speeds as frequently as that team needs. Part of the application, which is very mature, may be delivering relatively slowly. Some new feature you've just built or you're working on can be deploying extremely quickly without disturbing the stable parts of the application. This is why microservice architectures are more stable and safer to run. So we have many best practices here. We want to decompose, automate everything. We have standardized tools. We put governance and templates around this to make sure that everything is done safely. And then we deploy infrastructure as code. For all these steps, we have AWS products. We have code pipeline to wrap around this, code commit, code build, various third-party tools, and code build for testing, a code deploy to push out the deployments, and X-ray to monitor services and monitor your code in production. If we look at a typical application, it has all of these different parts. It has some EC2 instances, some containers, some services, and some Lambda functions. These applications are getting relatively complex. They're also quite dynamic. They change continuously. It's actually quite hard to figure out how to model and provision this infrastructure. And many of you, if you're working on this yourself, you'll be editing configuration files, writing lots of YAML, and wondering why it's so hard to do that. We have a new tool which we're working on called CDK, the Cloud Developer Kit. This lets you use a programmatic interface, a real programming language, to dynamically configure and generate infrastructure as code. So worth taking a look at that if you're building these interesting, complex applications. So what are we deploying? We're deploying instances, containers, and event-driven compute. If we look at instances, we have the broadest and deepest platform choice, over 190 different instance types now. Huge variety. Just to pick one that you may not be aware of, the P3DN. So P3 is a GPU-based platform for running deep learning and deep learning training kind of workloads. Incredibly powerful. It's the most powerful GPU instance available in the cloud. It has the largest amount of memory in the cloud. And it also has the fastest network. It has 100 gigabit network interfaces. That's what the N stands for on the instance type. So we now have instances with 100 gigabits with huge amounts of memory and GPU capacity for you to use. And you can use them for a few hours and then give them back. This is, if you're in a data center environment, you go to your data center people and say, please, I'd like to have a supercomputer for a few hours. It's not going to be a good conversation. But in the cloud, this is easily available. If we look at containers, we have the most complete platform for containers. On the one hand, if you don't want to think about it too hard and just get on with your life, ECS works the same way as EC2 and is fully integrated with all of the other AWS services. It's running very large-scale clusters of containers, very high reliability, and very high, a lot of capabilities and extremely deep integration. It's a very powerful capability, and it is in use by a huge number of our customers and growing very well. The way ECS works, you have to pick an instance, and then we pack containers into it. And customers were saying, well, I don't really want to have a complete instance or decide how big the instance should be. So we built Fargate. Fargate just say, I have these containers, figure out how to run them for me. And we have, again, a really good growth and support from our customers in using Fargate. It's very easy to use, very simple, and you don't have to think about so much. You can just get on with building your application and deploy the containers. However, there are customers that also want to run container orchestration using Kubernetes, and they want it to be the same on premises and across multiple providers. So that's the best, that's what Kubernetes is for. And with EKS, we have an extremely powerful service. We're running some of the largest Kubernetes clusters in the world. We're running the largest scale of Kubernetes. Most Kubernetes runs on AWS. And we're building it with the open source community. And the implementation we have is certified, and the changes we make are committed upstream into the community. So this is extremely compatible with all the other versions of Kubernetes that are out there. We know that that's the most important point here. So here's a customer using containers. KPMG built a due diligence solution for high-profile banking clients. You can see all the different services that it uses. It uses Fargate, ECS, DynamoDB, S3, and it is secure and it meets banking regulatory requirements. Very important. So we have lots of examples like this. Here's a list of customers. There's many customers doing amazing things with containers in production. If we move on to looking at Lambda, this gives you the most complete platform for running serverless application architectures. It integrates with 46 different services, again, many times more than other cloud providers' equivalent function as a service platforms. You can build all kinds of things with this. You can use it to help automate your operations, become event-driven. So when an instance appears or disappears, you can trigger a Lambda function to clean up or to set it up. You can build entire applications on Lambda, and you can use it to build all kinds of event-driven services across a huge variety of application spaces. To bundle this up and make it easier to configure, we have a serverless application model that simplifies building these. But the other thing is, it isn't just a powerful new way of building services. It's also extremely low cost and extremely fast to build. Not just a little bit better, a lot better. FICO reduced their compute costs by 95%. Coca-Cola cut processing time from 36 hours to 10 seconds. FINRA built an entire stock trade validation system in 3 months. And the Washington Post is releasing over 50 deployments an hour using serverless. Many examples here. It's such a powerful service that if you haven't used it, I really recommend figure out how to do serverless applications. Here's a completely serverless application. HomeAway is a rental service where you rent an apartment or a house from somebody, and they have lots of photographs of the house to process. Those photographs come in whenever somebody is, adding a new house to the catalog. But sometimes there's a lot of this happening, other times there's really nothing happening. So instead of having a collection of servers sitting there waiting for this work idle most of the time, this is a fully serverless application. When there's no traffic, there's nothing here. There's nothing running. There's no compute happening. It costs nothing to run until work happens. And if there's certain times of the year where everyone is going out and taking pictures and uploading them, it just scales to handle that as well. You don't have to think about it. Gives you extreme scalability, very low cost, very easy to manage. Again, lots of customers from startups to enterprises. One I want to pick out here is Krafton. Makes it the top-rated game, PlayerUnknown's Battleground. They started their service and they got a runaway success. They went from 0 to 3 million concurrent users in a year. They moved to a microservices architecture, and they've been running Lambda API Gateway to build this. They're now also able to scale whenever there's a traffic peak, maybe 10 times the peak comes in. They can scale, but they're not wasting capacity having idle machines sitting around. So I'd like now to bring on Lotte, one of the largest retailers of online shopping malls in South Korea. They're using containers and serverless architecture to set up their online shopping malls. So here to tell us more is the Vice President of Lotte E-commerce. Please welcome Mr. Chu.
안녕하십니까. 저는 롯데쇼핑 이커머스 사업본부에서 비즈니스 트랜스포메이션 본부를 맡고 있는 추동우 상무입니다. 저는 오늘 저희 롯데가 그리고 있는 이커머스의 미래에 대해서 간략하게 소개를 좀 드리고요. 또 하나는 이러한 여정 속에서 아마존 클라우드와 어떻게 같이 전이를 하고 있는지 간단하게 소개를 드리도록 하겠습니다. 먼저 온라인 커머스 시장의 변화에 대해서 간단하게 말씀드리겠습니다. 이커머스 시장은 지난 15년 동안 연평균 한 17% 성장해서 작년에 100조의 시장을 만들었습니다. 100조는 자동차 구매나 주유소 기름 넣는 것을 제외한 여러분들의 소비에서 4분의 1 정도를 온라인으로 구매한다는 의미입니다. 또 하나의 큰 변화는 80년대에 태어나고 2000년 초반까지 태어난 밀레니얼 세대들이 2025년까지 46%, 약 반 정도의 새로운 소비자 시장으로 커진다는 부분입니다. 밀레니얼 세대들은 모바일에 익숙하죠. 그러니까 새로운 이커머스가 더 커질 수 있다는 부분입니다. 또 하나의 큰 변화는 4차 산업혁명, 즉 AR, VR, 로봇 이런 부분들의 변화가 이커머스 시장에 새로운 서비스를 만들고 여러분들에게 새로운 변화를 줄 계획입니다. 저희 롯데는 1996년 6월 1일 날 대한민국 최초의 온라인 쇼핑몰인 롯데 인터넷 백화점을 런칭했습니다. 그 이후로 2000년에 롯데닷컴이나 롯데 면세점, 홈쇼핑, 저희 롯데가 가지고 있는 다양한 포맷별로 온라인 사이트를 운영하고 있습니다. 작년 8월에 이 중에 유통사업본부에 있는 7개의 온라인 사이트들의 IT UX를 통합해서 롯데 이커머스 사업본부를 출범을 하였습니다. 저희 롯데 이커머스 사업본부는 현재 새로운 시스템을 만들고 있는데 기존에 가지고 있는 사이트 7개 사이트의 통합을 통해서 고객에게 시너지 서비스를 제공하고 시너지를 만들어가고 있습니다. 첫 번째는 온라인에서의 시너지 부분입니다. 7개 사이트가 L포인트의 싱글 사인온 로그인을 통해서 앱 다운로드 한 번만 하면 다 쉽게 움직일 수 있는 서비스를 지난달 28일 날 런칭을 했습니다. 내년 3월에는 저희 롯데의 오포 전략, 즉 저희가 가지고 있는 매장과 온라인을 통합하고 특히 온라인 사이트의 백오피스와 모든 데이터를 통합할 수 있는 시스템이 내년 3월 달에 런칭이 될 것입니다. 간단하게 저희 롯데의 전이에 대해서 말씀드렸고요. 이러한 28일 날 오픈된 롯데의 온이라는 브랜드를 런칭을 했습니다. 이 사이트에 들어가시면 아마 싱글 사인온 한 번 로그인 하시면 7개 사이트에 쉽게 넘나들 수 있을 거고, 또 하나는 그 안에서의 검색과 추천을 통합적으로 운영할 수 있게 만들어져 있습니다. 저희가 아마존 클라우드 서비스와 지난 4년 정도 같이 서비스를 진행을 해왔습니다. 왜 저희가 AWS의 파블릭 클라우드를 차세대 인프라 환경으로 선택했는지에 대해서도 뒤에 말씀을 드리겠습니다. 크게 3단계에 의해서 진행해 왔는데, 첫 번째 단계는 단순하게 리프트 앤 시프트, 즉 서버를 AWS의 파블릭 클라우드에 올리는 작업을 진행을 했습니다. 저희가 운영하던 유니클로라든지 나이키나 롯데 슈퍼 부분들이 그렇게 서버를 옮기는 작업을 진행을 했습니다. 두 번째 전이의 단계는 옵티마이제이션입니다. 재작년 9월에 런칭한 롯데 면세점 같은 경우에는 DB를 좀 분산시키고, 물론 오라클 어플리케이션을 활용했지만 코어를 64개에서 32개로 좀 줄이면서 실제 한 20억 정도의 비용도 세이브를 했습니다. 그런 2단계의 전이를 마치고 나서 작년 10월에 저희 백화점 엘롯데 사이트를 클라우드 네이티브 환경으로 바꿨습니다. 저희가 이 기존에 운영되던 엘롯데 같은 경우에는 모놀리틱 아키텍처입니다. 아마 대한민국의 대부분의 온라인 사이트들이 이 모놀리틱 아키텍처로 구성되어 있습니다. 단일 도메인 구조로 만들어져 있고요. 중앙 집중식 DB 구조나 배포 주기나 횟수들도 제한적입니다. 앞서 말한 그 새로운 2020년대 후반에 이런 이커머스의 변화에 대응하려면 기존의 모놀리틱 아키텍처가 민첩성이라든지 확장성의 한계를 저희는 느끼게 되었습니다. 그래서 저희는 AWS와 클라우드 네이티브 전략을 만들었습니다. 먼저 그 모놀리틱 어플리케이션 구조가 가지고 있는 부분들의 한계를 20개 정도의 마이크로 서비스로 분리하는 작업을 진행을 했습니다. 우리 이걸 분리하게 되면 물론 이슈는 있습니다. IT 인력들을 더 확장해야 되는 인력도 있고 여러 가지는 있지만 실제 고객 서비스를 대응하기 위해서 실제 마이크로 서비스를 분리를 진행을 했고요. 두 번째는 200여 개의 람다 함수라든지 아니면 다이나모 DB를 활용해서 우리 주문 접수라든지 출고 지시를 서버 없이 자동으로 설계할 수 있게끔 그렇게 바꿔놨습니다. 저희는 이를 통해서 세 가지를 런을 했습니다. 첫 번째는 탄력적인 인프라 운영입니다. 온라인을 저도 이제 오랫동안 운영했지만 가장 큰 이슈가 새로운 이벤트를 할 때 순간적으로 필요한 이런 서버나 이런 거의 증설 부분들을 한두 달 전부터 미리 준비를 해야 됐습니다. AWS랑 같이 진행이 되면서 이런 부분들이 몇 시간 어떤 면에서는 자동적으로 이런 탄력적인 인프라를 확충하는 부분들이 저희한테는 도움이 됐습니다. 두 번째는 마이크로 아키텍처를 만들게 되면서 저희 조직들을 데브옵스 조직으로 만들었습니다. 그렇게 되다 보니까 실제 비즈니스의 민첩성들이 좋아졌습니다. 세 번째 저희가 런을 한 거는 서버리스 부분입니다. 실제 이런 부분들을 진행하다 보니까 특히 이제 다이나모 DB라든지 람다 함수를 활용해서 실제 바로 대응을 하다 보니까 기존 IT 인력들이 어떤 유지 보수나 이런 쪽에 진행되는 비용들보다는 실제 본인들이 개발하거나 이런 쪽 본업에 좀 집중할 수 있는 이런 환경이 되었다고 말할 수 있겠습니다. 지금까지 AWS하고 지난 4년 동안에 해왔던 부분들을 말씀을 드렸는데 저희는 내년 1쿼터, 내년 3월 말에 통합 앱을 런칭을 합니다. 롯데가 그리는 이커머스는 2023년까지 약 20조 그리고 3,800만 L포인트 롯데 고객들 그리고 하루에 1,000만의 트래픽을 받을 수 있는 시스템을 새로 구축하는 부분입니다. 이러기 위해서는 기존에 만들어졌던 엘롯데의 마이크로 아키텍처 서비스를 좀 더 확장하는 작업을 현재 준비를 하고 있습니다. 더 디테일하게 나누고 데브옵스 조직을 준비를 하고 있습니다. IT 조직도 보다 애자일하게끔 만들고 있습니다. 이러한 모든 전이 부분들을 AWS랑 같이 진행할 계획입니다. 저희 롯데 이커머스가 커가는 과정들을 관심 있게 지켜봐 줬으면 좋겠습니다. 감사합니다.
That was a really good example of how to migrate to a cloud-native application architecture. So let's talk about databases now, database freedom. One of the things we hear over and over again from our customers when they are migrating to cloud, they say, please help us get away from the licenses that we're tied into with enterprise vendors like Oracle and Microsoft. They have high lock-in, they're proprietary, and then really not customer-focused. They tend to come in and audit you for license violation rather than coming in and helping you build a new application to solve your business problems. So, we've now been moving to open source databases. This gives you the freedom. And we've been investing in making MySQL, Postgres, MariaDB easy to use and very high performance. In particular, Aurora is a specially cloud-built backend, special purpose backend, which lets us run MySQL and Postgres extremely quickly and also with very good availability and scalability. So as you can see, 5 times faster than standard MySQL, 3 times faster than Postgres. It's got a 6-way replicated backend. There's 6 copies of the data. And even so, it's 1/10 of the cost of a commercial-grade database. We've been migrating AWS to Aurora. We've seen many customers migrate, and it's been the fastest-growing service ever. Tens of thousands of customers, doubling every year for the last 3 years. So, to take some local examples, Nexon, the #1 Korean gaming company, uses Aurora for MapleStory M to process high game transaction data from millions of mobile users. They've reduced their total cost of ownership by 50% for MySQL database operations compared to running the way they ran before. And Jeju Air, Korea's leading low-cost airline carrier, is using Aurora to ensure service availability even with short-term surges in user traffic due to gym events where people bid for tickets. This scales out to expand their infrastructure with pay-as-you-go pricing. So this is some great examples of Aurora use. But we have a huge collection of databases, the most complete family of purpose-built databases, because you don't try and fit every application into one database anymore. Sometimes you want relational. Sometimes you want a key value like DynamoDB. Maybe you need DocumentDB, Elasticache for indexing and searching, and high-speed lookups for Redis and Memcached. Neptune gives you a graph database, TimeStream for time series, and then QLDB, which I'll explain later. DynamoDB is really the bedrock of running AWS and running the Amazon.com commerce site. It's become a huge capability, and we've added 29 new capabilities to it in the last 18 months. Global tables for distributing data across regions. On-demand backups. This is really powerful. And on point-in-time recovery. So you can back up hundreds of terabytes of database instantly with no performance impact. This is incredibly hard to do. And then you can restore back to any second in the last 35 days if you need to. Because even with the best hardware availability, sometimes your software will write the wrong data. There'll be something where you have to say, I corrupted the database, I have to go back and roll back to some point in time. Incredibly powerful. And also read-write capacity on demand, so you don't have to decide up front how large your database needs to be. You can scale to just the capacity you need at the time. We have a huge number of customers using DynamoDB. But let's talk about blockchain. There's a lot of hype around blockchain, a lot of confusion, but it is useful for some applications. So you have to separate what customers are really doing from all of the hype that's being talked about it. So we did that, we looked at it, and we said, actually, there's a set of applications here which don't need a full blockchain system. What they really wanted was a ledger database. So we built one. This is actually based on some internal technology that we've been using for many years. This is something that we had to build our own internal control plane and management technology to run AWS. So this is very useful, but built on a very stable base. It gives you an append-only immutable journal of everything that happens. But it's centralized. That lets you be very high performant and very scalable. So this applies where there is a central trusted authority, but you want to have a complete cryptographically verified log of everything that happens. And this covers some of the use cases that people have for blockchain-like capacity. However, we also find there are many people using, in particular, Hyperfabric, Hyperledger Fabric, or Ethereum. So we've made it easy to create these. In the same way as you'd set up a MySQL server on RDS or a MariaDB server, you can now start a managed blockchain server, very simply to just set up and scale. So it makes it much easier for customers to build out their systems. You pick your framework, add network members, configure nodes, then just deploy applications to those nodes. So making it easy for people. So this is the moment for database freedom, to get off your old relationships and enterprise licenses and move to a new world. So I have an example here from Samsung. Samsung Electronics has maintained constant focus on innovation and discovery. They've been redefining TVs, smartphones, wearable devices, tablets, and countless other electronics. So please join me in welcoming Vice President of Samsung Electronics, Mrs. Jung Jae-yeon.
안녕하세요. 삼성전자에서 삼성 어카운트를 맡고 있는 정재현입니다. 오늘 이런 멋진 자리에 서게 되어서 정말 영광이고요. 오늘 이 자리를 통해서 저희가 최근 수개월 동안 삼성 어카운트를 AWS 클라우드로 이전하는 과정에서 겪은 테크니컬 챌린지들과 그 다음에 저희가 얻은 레슨들을 좀 공유해 드리도록 하겠습니다. 먼저 삼성 어카운트에 대해서 간단히 좀 소개해 드리겠습니다. 그래서 일반 사용자분 여러분들께서 삼성 기기에 로그인해서 빅스비, 스마트띵스, 삼성 클라우드, 삼성 페이와 같은 다양한 삼성 서비스들을 경험하실 수 있게 해드리는 그런 인증 플랫폼이고요. 삼성 어카운트는. 그리고 삼성 어카운트는 이렇게 저희가 많은 서비스들의 그 기본적인 인증을 제공해 주기 때문에 저희 삼성이 판매하고 있는 많은 모바일 전화기들, 가전기기들, TV, 그리고 수많은 IoT 기기들에서 사용되고 있습니다. 그리고 또 앞서 말씀드린 이러한 스마트띵스, 빅스비 같은 서비스들이 전 세계에서 저희가 제공되고 있기 때문에 삼성 어카운트도 각 지역의 AWS 클라우드와 그리고 자체 IDC에서 운영을 하고 있습니다, 지금. 그리고 많은 경우에 그렇듯이 원래 서비스를 하기 위해서는 사용자 인증이 기본으로 되어야 되기 때문에 이제 인증 서비스들이 먼저 만들어지게 되는데 삼성 어카운트도 이제 초기에 저희가 구축할 때는 이게 수년 전이었고 이제 그 당시에는 물론 이제 최신 기술이었겠지만 현재 지금에 봤을 때는 이제 오래된 어떤 웹 기술과 모노리틱한 아키텍처 그리고 제한된 장비에서 운영되는 그러한 애로사항으로 저희가 스케일을 하는데 좀 어려움을 겪고 있었습니다. 인증 플랫폼에서 가장 중요한 컴포넌트는 바로 데이터베이스죠. 그래서 저희가 시간이 지남에 따라서 IDC에서 운영하고 있던 데이터베이스 장비가 노후가 되었고 그리고 서비스 규모와 트래픽이 늘어나면서 더 빠른 소프트웨어와 그리고 하드웨어 리드 타임이 필요로 하게 되었습니다. 그리고 서비스 규모를 제대로 수용하려면 이렇게 유연한 마이크로 서비스 기반의 클라우드, 그 네이티브한 클라우드 아키텍처가 요구되었고요. 근데 안타깝게도 이러한 요구사항을 기존 상용 데이터베이스 솔루션으로 해결하기에는 좀 어려움이 많이 있었습니다. 레가시 데이터베이스는 잘 아시겠지만 유연하지 못하고 또 저희가 이런 라이센스 비용도 무시할 수 없었기 때문에 문제가 좀 있었고요. 그리고 무중단 서비스를 위한 그런 이제 마이그레이션 하면서 무중단 서비스를 위한 그런 기술적인 제약도 좀 컸습니다. 그래서 이 자리를 통해서 저희가 레가시 데이터베이스를 클라우드로 전환하는 과정에서 겪은 그런 좀 두 가지 큰 테크니컬 챌린지와 그리고 저희가 이걸 어떻게 극복했는지를 좀 말씀드리려고 합니다. 첫 번째로 저희는 기존 상용 데이터베이스를 PostgreSQL로 이전을 하기로 했고요. 그 PostgreSQL은 잘 아시겠지만 성능이 뛰어나고 그리고 또 대중적인 오픈소스 데이터베이스고 한국에서도 그 영역을 더욱 넓혀나가고 있죠. 그러나 더 많이 사용되고 있는 이런 MySQL에 비해서는 아직 많은 레퍼런스가 없는 게 현실이었습니다. 그래서 저희는 이번 기회에 AWS 전문가분들의 도움을 통해서 다른 글로벌 고객들이 어떻게 그 DB를 전환하셨는지 그러한 사례에 대해서 공유를 받았고 PostgreSQL DB의 운영과 모니터링 그리고 쿼리 변환에 대한 저희 교육에 대한 지원도 받았습니다. 또 삼성 어카운트는 제가 앞서 말씀드린 것처럼 삼성 서비스들의 그 가장 중요한 그러니까 처음에 들어가는 인증을 담당하는 서비스이기 때문에 어카운트 서비스의 안정성이 매우 중요합니다. 그래서 저희가 그 AWS가 제공하는 그 변환 도구와 그리고 무중단 서비스를 위해서 단계적인 그런 롤백 플랜과 그다음에 애플리케이션 호환 테스트 계획도 마련했습니다. 그러면 데이터베이스를 저희가 어떻게 이전했는지를 좀 말씀을 드리겠는데요. 먼저 유럽 지역에 있었던 기존의 오라클 데이터베이스를 저희가 22주를 걸려서 오로라 포스트그레스QL로 완전히 이전을 할 수 있었습니다. 그래서 저 데이터베이스는 지금 수 테라바이트의 사용자 및 기기 데이터가 있고 그 다음에 3만 이상의 queries per second를 지원을 하고 있었고 그다음에 수천 개의 쿼리들을 서포트를 하는 이제 그러한 데이터베이스였고요. 그리고 저희는 AWS 마이그레이션 전문가분들과 협업을 통해서 기존의 테이블 스키마랑 쿼리를 AWS 스키마 컨버전 툴로 자동으로 변환을 할 수 있었습니다. 그리고 나머지 그런 몇 전환이 안 되는 부분에 대해서는 이제 매뉴얼로 튜닝을 진행을 해서 쿼리에 전혀 문제가 없게 했고요. 그래서 이를 위해서 저희 쪽 엔지니어들과 그 AWS 전문가분들과 긴밀히 협력을 하였고 그리고 데이터를 이전하는 데 있어서는 데이터베이스 마이그레이션 서비스를 활용했습니다. 그래서 이 장표에서 보시는 것처럼 저희가 기존의 IDC에 있었던 오라클 데이터베이스를 이제 클라우드 기반으로 이제 이러한 스텝을 통해서 옮겼는데요. 이제 처음에 소스 데이터베이스에서 덤프 파일을 저희가 받아서 그걸 중간 단계인 AWS RDS 서비스로 이전을 한 후에 데이터베이스 마이그레이션 서비스를 통해서 타겟 DB로 초기 데이터를 적재했습니다. 그리고 그 사이에 저희가 이제 무중단으로 이거를 마이그레이션 했기 때문에 그 사이에 변경된 부분들은 DMS Change Data Capture라는 기능을 통해서 저희가 동기화를 진행을 계속했고요. 그래서 이런 방법을 통해서 이 서로 다른 오라클과 그 포스트그레스QL에 대한 데이터 마이그레이션이었음에도 불구하고 서비스 중단 없이 이전이 가능했습니다. 그래서 이러한 그 전환을 통해서 저희가 뭐 성능 개선뿐만이 아니라 이런 상용 데이터베이스의 어떤 라이센스 피라든지 그다음에 관련 솔루션 비용을 크게 절감할 수 있었고요. 그리고 무엇보다도 오로라 같은 이러한 매니지 서비스를 저희가 이용할 수 있었기 때문에 이런 오픈 소스 데이터베이스를 이용을 함에도 불구하고 상용 DB와 맞먹는 그러한 성능을 얻을 수 있었습니다. 그래서 이러한 그 AWS 이제 클라우드를 바탕으로 삼성 어카운트가 전 세계적으로 계속 성장하고 있는 이런 빅스비, 스마트띵스, 페이 같은 서비스들을 계속 잘 지원할 수 있도록 점점 더 탄탄하고 커가는 서비스로 여러분들에게 다가갈 수 있게 되었습니다. 감사합니다.
Well, that was a great story and really nice graphics as well on the presentation. Very good. So we talked about databases. So we don't just want to store data, we want to analyze it as well. We want to get more value from the data. So let's look at all of the different things we have for analyzing all of the data that we have collected. We've got lots of different approaches here, lots of different options, because you want to do visualization, machine learning with things like QuickSight. You want to do analytics, build a data lake, and then do data movement to get all your data into the lake. Before I go on, I want to just mention one thing that we've been doing recently. The Amazon Elasticsearch service. We've had this service since 2015, and recently we decided we wanted to extend it and add a lot more capabilities to it. But we took the approach of open sourcing those extensions. So there is a new capability, you can go find it, called Open Distro for Elasticsearch, an open distribution, open source distribution. So you can make contributions to it if you like, or you can even run the entire system somewhere else. You can run it yourself, you can run it on premise, you can do what you like with it. So we're giving back to open source, but as we extend our Elasticsearch service. So that's a useful new capability that we announced a month or so ago. So let's talk a bit about Redshift, though. Redshift, it pulls together the data from different sources. It's really great for structured queries across very large databases. And it's about 20 times faster than ad hoc query services. So if you know the query you want to run, you're going to run it over and over again for weekly reports, those kinds of things. That's what Redshift is really good at. If you're doing data exploration, you might want to use something like Athena, where you're trying to just discover something that's never been seen before. And then if we look at real-time streaming analytics, we now have a lot of data coming in on video streams. And there's a lot of this happening in retail, it's happening in all kinds of areas, but as the data comes in, we want to capture, process, and store those video streams for analytics. And then we also have data streams alongside that. We use a data firehose to load that in, run analytics on it. And then we have another new service, managed streaming for Kafka. So this gives you the best of the Kinesis system that we've had as a managed service for many years, and also the best of the Kafka open source environment, which gives you a bunch of related capabilities. But cloud data lakes are really the future. You want to put all your data in the cloud. One of the first applications that I ever put in the cloud when I was at Netflix was a data lake. The problem was our disks kept filling up in the data center. And we were completely always going and buying more disks. We didn't have enough space. So we put all the data in S3, and then we worked on it there. So if we look at S3, it's the most popular choice for data lakes. It gives you unmatched durability, availability, and scalability, has the best security, compliance, and audit capabilities, object-level control. You get business insight into your data. So we have a storage class analyzer which looks at your request patterns and then recommends how to organize your data for the best performance and the best cost. We offer many ways to bring data into S3. Once the data is there, you can actually combine these. You can leave your data in S3 and process it from the Redshift using Redshift Spectrum. You can connect your data lake, and you can we even analyzed once, we ran a database benchmark, a Redshift Spectrum benchmark with an exabyte of data. An exabyte. It's a huge database, without having to load the data first. Some examples, local examples. DevSisters, they produce mobile games like the Cookie Run series. To better serve diverse business groups, needed to ingest and extract data from a variety of sources by integrating them together and running a data lake on S3 and Athena. They can now analyze data and create dashboards 93% quicker than before, speeding everything up. Another example from Hyundai. Department store built H.Point membership data warehouse and business intelligence system on AWS. By running the data lake on Amazon, they are able to manage historical and real-time information for 5.3 million members and saving 30% on the IT costs over a 5-year TCO compared to an on-premise solution. So many customers doing this. But if you want to build a data lake, what does it look like? You have to go through all these steps. Set up the storage, move the data, clean it, prepare it. Then you have to configure and enforce policies on who has access to the data. The data lake is often one of the most critical data sources in a company, and you can't just have everyone accessing it because there's a lot of privileged information there. But it still has to be accessible for people to use and run analytics. We saw customers building this over and over again, and that's why we built AWS Lake Formation. Lake Formation is a service that lets you build a secure data lake in days. It moves, stores, and cleans the data and uses machine learning to figure out how to set things up. Then it enforces security policies across multiple services and lets you manage new insights from your data. This has been extremely popular with our customers. So, new insights. What kind of new insights? So, let's look at machine learning next. What we're trying to do is put machine learning in the hands of every developer and data scientist. We don't want this to be something that you have to go to a university research department and have a PhD to do. It needs to be everywhere. We have a long heritage of machine learning at Amazon. We've been using this for a long time. We've done robotics, we've done drone delivery. The Alexa voice system, again, that's a machine learning system. And even the Amazon Go store, where you buy something by picking it up and just walk out. And the system uses cameras and processes and machine learning to figure out what you picked up, who you are, and charges you for what you took. I've been doing this for a long time. More machine learning is happening on AWS than anywhere else. We've got so many customers here. And a local example, UrbanBase, spatial data platform that helps users reimagine 3D space through the use of augmented reality. To simplify the traditional approach for building, hosting, and managing it, they use Amazon SageMaker to create prototypes 93% faster than on-premises workstations. They're able to train and easily host machine learning models to reduce operational complexity of deployment and maintenance. So how do they do that? Let's look at some of those services in more detail. We think about AI as having 3 different layers. We have a bottom layer of frameworks and infrastructure. In the middle layer, we have machine learning services that you can use to build anything out of those combinations. And at the top layer, we have high-level AI services for specific tasks. So if we look at the bottom, As I mentioned before, the P3DN gives us the best price performance for model training, an incredibly powerful system with huge capacity. Has over 100 gigabytes more system memory and twice as much GPU memory as the biggest instance available from any other supplier. If we look at frameworks, we have a broad group. And the thing here is these frameworks have changed. Over the last 2 years, I've been giving this presentation. The frameworks have come, new frameworks have come, and some have gone. You can expect new frameworks to continually appear because there's a fast-moving area. And we will take the latest new frameworks and combine them into our SageMaker environment. So you just have to use the tool, and every now and again, a new framework, a new algorithm, new interface will appear. The main ones in use today are TensorFlow, MXNet, and PyTorch. And a lot of people are currently using TensorFlow. Turns out 85% of TensorFlow workloads running on any cloud today run on AWS. We're the main place where people are operating it, and we have many customers obviously using it. But what we found was that TensorFlow was okay for getting started and doing small workloads, but as it scaled, people were running into problems. So we did some work on scaling efficiency and managed to get to 90% scaling efficiency with a large-scale GPU cluster, having optimized for AWS. But that's training primarily. But it turns out that most of the work running AI in the cloud is actually inference. If you think about, say, the Alexa voice activation system, it spends most of the work we do is trying to figure out what you just said, and a small amount of work is training the system to understand language, right? So this is very common. Once you get to production and real AI systems on real workloads, your compute workload switches very quickly from training to inference. So we have elastic inference. This adds GPU acceleration to any EC2 instance for faster inference at much lower cost. And then we're working on a new chipset, AWS Inferentia. It's going to reduce the cost of inference by 10 times. It's an incredible system. Hundreds of teraflops of inference performance, and multiple chips can be used together to drive thousands of teraflops of performance. The capacity, the supercomputing capacity required to run deep learning is quite mind-boggling. It's a huge system nowadays in terms of performance. And we're just now down to a few chips. So elastic inference is available today, and Inferentia later this year. So if you're trying to make your machine learning developers more productive, that's what SageMaker's for. It gives you the complete life cycle of developing your application. You need ground truth to figure out how to get labeled data. You need notebooks for recording the processing you've been doing. Highly tuned and optimized algorithms. We keep adding new algorithms. Reinforcement learning, there's training, optimization, deployment, and hosting of the end inference engine. End-to-end, all managed in a single tool. And if you only remember one brand for doing AI, SageMaker will include whatever you need. It'll include whatever comes along. As the area evolves, and it's moving very quickly, we'll have new algorithms and new frameworks and new capabilities in SageMaker. So, lots of, basically you have all of these notebook environments using the Jupyter format, which is an open source, a Python-based environment for building your machine learning models. And then ground truth helps you build highly accurate data sets. And then you can just keep building your algorithms on here and deploy them any way you like. You can train them, and work out how you want to optimize that training with hyperparameter optimization, and use SageMaker Neo to roll out optimized versions for a particular target platform. So you come up with a general model which will work fine, but if you know exactly what system it's going to be deployed on, then you can maybe get twice the performance and use less memory and get the same quality result. So we have more than 10,000 customers using SageMaker. It's been an extremely successful product for AWS. And IGA TechWorks, the largest ad tech company in Korea, they use SageMaker to predict online advertisement recommendation, and it reduced 30% of the time that they were previously taking to do their training pipeline. And Krafton are also using machine learning and SageMaker to detect user abuse in its game community based on user reports and reading logs. So they're building an auto-abuser detection system to reduce the work it takes to weed out abusers for their users in the gaming environment. So far, I've discussed the bottom and the middle. Let's talk about what we have on top of the stack. We want to make an easy API call to just get something done. And we have a broader array of services here. For vision, we can take image and video, we can identify what entities are in there, and we can label them. With video, we can see where they are moving. And then Textract is better than just optical character recognition. It understands the structure of documents, and we'll pull those out for you. So for speech, we have Poly and Transcribe for turning audio into text, and Translate for changing between languages. And all those are available in Korean. We also, in other languages, we have Comprehend for understanding the semantics of what is in a document, and a special version for medical documents that understands medical terminology and the structure of those documents. It's a very common problem that we're solving for customers. And then Lex, which lets you build effectively your own Alexa-based service for chat and creating conversational applications. Now, going back into some of the earliest users of AI techniques were around personalization and forecasting. We've bundled up the latest capabilities here into services which will give you an off-the-shelf way to forecast time series data, gather data in the past, predict the future. And Personalize, which gives you a recommendation engine-based personalization using technology derived from what we use at Amazon.com. Now, to put all this together, when a customer comes to us and says, we have a problem, how do we solve this? What can we even do? We have a machine learning solutions lab. You come in and we will help you. We'll brainstorm, we'll do custom modeling, we'll train your staff. You work side by side with Amazon experts. You can find out more about it in the expo. And then we have the Machine Learning University. This gives you training and certification courses in the general area of AI, but also specifically using this tool set so that you can become incredibly efficient at getting things built really quickly. We've been building a few tools to help people explore this space. About 1.5 years ago, we released AWS Deep Lens. It is a camera with a built-in inference engine. There's a GPU in the box. We use that as an environment for teaching AI to our customers. And then 6 months ago, we decided, well, it's great to point a camera at things, but let's put wheels on it. We came out with the Deep Racer. This is the chassis of a normal sort of 1/18th scale radio control car. You're replacing the radio control system with basically a deep lens, camera, an AI-based control CPU. And we can put all this together and create a car, which you can then use to do AI-based learning. And what we've been doing is using it to teach it using reinforcement learning to drive around a track. So right now I'm going to roll a video to show you what this is about.
Hello everyone, I'm Ryan Green. These are 1/18th scale RC cars that are fully autonomous thanks to reinforcement learning.
All right, this is a very cool thing to go play around with. So what we've got now is a Deep Racer League, a global autonomous racing league. At each of our AWS summits, we have customers competing using the cars to see who can train the car best to go fastest around the track. We've been doing this now for 3 or 4, maybe the last month or so at several summits. And the cars have been getting faster and faster at each summit. But you build a model, you race it at the summit, and the winning racer at each summit gets to compete in a championship cup at reInvent in Las Vegas in November, December. We're going to be running virtual tournaments throughout the year as well. So this is very interesting. How does this work? Basically, the training happens in a simulator. And the simulator is custom built into the environment for building the Deep Racer, but it's actually using another technology that we also released recently, which is called RoboMaker. So we have now a robotics platform at AWS. We're using that robotics platform to build the Deep Racer itself, and then building artificial intelligence to program the robot to drive around and learn to race around a track. So you run in the simulator until your car learns to drive, and then you try it on the track. We're finding many customers getting very interested in this. We're running Deep Racer events at customer sites around the world, and it's proving an extremely popular way to learn how to use the tools and how to use some of the latest techniques in deep learning. If you want to find out more about what's going on at AWS, you can go to ml.aws and find out everything there. There's a long list of all of the different products and how to get started. But let's think a bit more. What's going on at the edge? Machine learning at the edge. A huge amount of data is now coming from billions of edge devices. That data needs to be processed, needs to figure out what's going on with it. But working with these devices is challenging. There's laws of physics, economics, the law of the land. There's lots of constraints here. And collecting and analyzing data is also tough. So we've built an Internet of Things platform that gives you the data services, the device software, and the control services for building all kinds of devices that are intelligent, they're connected, and they give new and interesting, compelling customer capabilities that weren't previously there. And there's many different pieces here. We've got to have graphics, we've got to be able to manage fleets of devices, we've got to be able to make all this work at scale. I mean, it's got to work for industrial applications as well as consumer-oriented applications. We have all of those capabilities. We have customers spanning all of the industries now. But in particular, I want to highlight an LG example. LG ThinQ. This is their brand that categorizes all the upcoming smarts products and services. They can They used AWS IoT to reduce the management time for its IoT platform. They saved 80% in development cost, and were able to developers to focus on writing business logic for LG service scenarios. So there's a lot happening here. And at the summit, we have all kinds of interesting experiences. You will find the AI special sessions. You'll find a whole set of customer stories. And there's a smart home in the AWS Expo with many IoT devices installed in it. And I'm looking forward to looking around that smart home myself. There's automatic machine translation. There's Alexa in there. And there's something called sushi detection. So if you think about those little plates on a conveyor belt with sushi on them, there's a machine that recognizes the sushi and figures out whether to replace it. Have to go and have a look. Now, talking about sushi, I'm sure you're starting to get hungry. So you'll be glad to hear that we're wrapping up now. And next, I believe, you get to have lunch, and you get to go to the expo, and you get to go to all the rest of the events. There's an awful lot of things happening here. I really want to say, as I said at the beginning, this is an educational event. There are some people here with a huge amount of experience, and there are a lot of people who are new to AWS and new to these technologies. So talk to each other, talk to AWS, talk to the partners, and really make the most of today and tomorrow as you figure out how you can build on AWS. So thank you very much.